so immediately after I shot that first diary entry, I thought I'd shoot another. Hence the same garb. I do apologise for the lack of sartorial colour. I want to show you something that I got on a whim. I had a catalogue from Bodleian Library in work, who, you know, obviously it's a library, but they publish books and they do what we call related product, i.e. things which are nothing to do with books but vaguely tie in some way, you know, cards, journals, diaries, bags, that sort of thing. And I decided to buy a couple of things. I bought a tote bag for the video widow, and I decided to buy one for myself. And even though I'm not a fan of Tolkien's prose, I'm really not, I find him terribly dull. I do like his artwork. I like his pictures, his drawing, his paintings. I think they've really got a style of their own. And I've always loved the picture of Smaug on top of his hoard from The Hobbit underneath the mountains. So I saw a Smaug, you know, tote bag, and I thought that'd be handy, you know, that'll look cool when I do a video, and I'll have that, you know, it'll satisfy the fantasy fans. So I ordered it, and it was out of stock, took a while to come. It was only 10 quid, and it turned up, and look at the size of it. It's tiny. Now, I probably should have read the description a bit more, but, you know, the one that I got for my partner it was bigger. It was a nice sort of one, different sort of design, not a Tolkien one. But look at that. What can I do with that? You know, I'm not going to look very, very sort of manly and Conan-esque walking around with that, am I really? You get a couple of A formats in it, so I guess I'll find some use for it. But I was really disappointed with that. However, I thought I'd do a little experiment and sort of just film a few snippets now and again to sort of make up the diary of a science fiction collector. So this is going to be disparate. My costume will change constantly, but the main thing is the books, of course, so we'll see. So I've just been tidying up in the hideout today, and it's only recently I went to Hay-on-Wye, of course, but I've realised I need to have another clear out again. It's just so much stuff, and I think it's partially the lockdown. You know, in the lockdown we all sort of acquired things, and you know, it's time for probably a good spring clean, probably the first proper one for 2 years. But anyway, what have I been doing? I just wanted to show you some stuff, and it's something which I forgot to show last time when I talked about Suzette Haydn Elgin. This is her novel Native Tongue, which was in Women's Press SF in the 80s, and this is it's not the current masterwork because it's gone out of print. It was reissued in 2019, and I forgot to show you that. So if you see it, pick it out, because it's probably not going to appear again ever. She died in 2015, so it's a shame really. So it says inside, Lagan said, classic text of angry feminism. So there you go. And let's see, it's got a complete bibliography in here, and the Coyote Jones book that I don't have is called Yonder Comes the Other End of Time, 1986. So I'm going to try and pick that up and finish off my reading of Community Path Worlds. But if you see that, pick it up, because as I say, it's out of print now. Recently I acquired a few things on eBay from a seller who's just got hundreds and hundreds of SF novels on sale, and you know, and I picked out a few things which I thought looked fantastic, and it's you know, everybody knows about my love of the Pan lozenge and the fact that I've been collecting Poul Anderson of late, who's somebody I neglected as SF, and I got this one of Guardians of Time, which is short stories from that series, and first published I think in the UK in about 61, and this is obviously a 70s reprint, and really, really nice condition. Unbroken spine, look at that, nice and lean, no sort of fat on it, that's what you want. And from the same guy, I'm not going to tell you who it is because I'm keeping it for myself, I bought a really nice copy of Brian Aldiss's report on Probability A, which I couldn't resist because I do like Aldis. You know, this is one of the great new wave classics, and I'd never seen this jacket before, and it's Sphere. Got the distinctive SF down there with Sphere, which is rather similar to the SF the Sidgwick used, funnily enough. So there you go, and really, really nice receding sort of duplicate mirror type thing there. Very, very good. So very, very nice. I couldn't resist that because, you know, Odyssey was very prolific, and you could, if you read one of his books a month and you read them all, it would take you something like, you know, 4.5 years. But I probably read about 40 of them, I guess. You know, you're an awful lot. So, and there's something which I couldn't resist at all, and I've never ever seen it before. And this is a book by Kit Reed, female science fiction writer, called Other Stories and the Attack of the Giant Baby, from Berkeley. And I think that's an 80s book. Let's just have a look at that. And Kit Reed is 1981. Kit Reed is somebody I've never paid enough attention to. I've read short stories, never read any of her novels, and I've been thinking for a while I really should pick up something by her. And look at that, isn't that fantastic? Other Stories and the Attack of the Giant Baby. Not the Attack of the Giant Baby and Other Stories, that would be too boring. So good for her, and fantastic. I love that. And finally, from this little stash, and these are all like about £3. I got this Hal Clement book called The Nitrogen Fix, from, again, I think it's the early 80s again. It's Ace, and I mean, Hal Clement, he had degrees in everything. 1980, he had about 5 degrees, you know, he sort of went from one science to another, and his stuff's very sort of, it's not very literary, but, you know, he's very much an ideas man, world building, problem solving, that sort of thing. And The Nitrogen Fix, what a great title and cover, so I couldn't resist that. So, you know, there's one little entry out of the way for you. Sunday afternoon. This morning I went to Clifton in Bristol and had a wander around, and, you know, got some fresh air, things like that. And while I was there, I went into a couple of charity shops and picked up a few things on the cheap. So I thought I'd show you what I managed to get. And the first one I went into, I bought this, Science Fiction, Its Criticism and Teaching by Patrick Parinder, who's been involved with SF, you know, is writing introductions and what have you for scholarly editions for years. And this was published by Methuen in 1980. It's in the New Accents series, which is a series of lit crit books. I'm a big fan of, I collect sort of lit crit and historical books about SF, and I have come across this once before, never got around to reading it. Obviously it's old, it's 40 years old, Unbroken Spine, faded. It was only £2.50, and I'm going to sort of add that to the little criticism library, which I'll show you at one point, because like I said recently in another video, if you really want to understand SF, you can do your own reading, but it's important to get context, and you get really good context in reading these sort of things, and you get lots of interesting arguments and what have you, and you won't always agree with them, but they will broaden your understanding of the genre as a whole, because context is everything. So I was very pleased with that. In the same shop, I also picked up this nice A format copy of Arthur C. Clarke's 2061 Odyssey 3. I'm not a massive Clarke fan, I keep saying this. I was a huge fan of 2001 A Space Odyssey when I was young, and I've never read 2010. I have been thinking about picking this because I do like the cover. I love the iconography of HarperCollins, and this is a 90s edition. The book I think came out in 88. This is a 90s edition because it has the HarperCollins flame there at the bottom rather than Grafton. It stopped being Grafton at that point. So there's a 90s A format. It's very, very, very slight spine lean, which is barely visible. But yeah, quite nice. So I like the cover. So that sort of prevents me from, you know, falling into a rabbit hole looking for a hard cover and that sort of stuff. I've also been into anthologies recently, and I think it was looking through some of my anthologies the other day. I posted a video the other day and I was sorting some of them out. I ended up picking up a couple more in charity shops, and this is New Writings in SF 22 from Sidgwick and Jackson. This is sort of like early 70s, and I think it's like 75, I think, and it cost me £3, and there we go. And I'm very fond of these sort of things. and it's got all this in there. Graham Charnock, who's involved, Michael Moorcock. It's got a couple of writers I've never heard of, Vera Johnson, Bob Van Leerhoven. So it's always interesting to read short stories by these people, and it's edited by Kenneth Bulmer. Now, if you watch a lot of SF videos on YouTube these days, you'll see a lot of Kenneth Bulmer's books, because everybody's into Door at the moment, and the old Door thing is sort of really sort of catching on. And of course, you'll see lots of books by Alan Burt Akers, the Dre Prescott series, of which there must have been about 30 of them in Door. And that's Ken Bulmer, because he wrote all sorts of things. So that's that. There you go. And I'm trying to pick up more of these, but they're quite hard to find, especially in decent nick. So for £3, I was really pleased. I also got this fantastic American hardcover, Harper and Row, 1975, Nebula Award Stories 11, edited by Ursula Le Guin. And I've just taken an old library jacket off this. The only trouble is it does have a couple of stickers, which I'm not going to get off. But the library jacket is off. It's stamped there. And this is really nice. It's, look at that, quarter cloth. That's what that binding is. There are some marks there where the librarians, the Philistines, taped the jacket on there. That's the library jacket that was over the book jacket. And yeah, quarter cloth, really nice. So but it's in fairly decent nick. Does have some of the usual markings, as they say in ABE, and this was from a place called Stickney, Illinois. So how it got from Illinois to Somerset is beyond me, but there's some great stuff in here. And just to read through it, shows you what amazing shape SF was in 1975. There's a bit of a pencil mark there. I'm going to rub that out if you'll indulge me a moment. And I have to put my own cover on this. I tend to sort of recover books with sort of clear plastic, quite thin, because it's easy to work with. Yeah, there's some great stuff in here. And Fritz Lieber, Joe Haldeman with the last segment of the Forever War, fantastic novel. A Roger Zelazny story, somebody called PJ Plauger, which I've never heard of. Little essay by Vonda McIntyre, an essay by Peter Nichols of the SF Encyclopedia, my hero. Saturday by Harlan Ellison, fantastic story. A story by Tom Reamy called San Diego Lightfoot Sioux. And Tom Reamy is an obscure writer. He died very young, quite suddenly. He wrote one novel and a few short stories, and San Diego Lightfoot Sioux is his most famous one. He's like a cross between Ray Bradbury and Theodore Sturgeon, I would say. And also Time Deer by Craig Street. Now, Craig Street, also known as Craig Key Street, wrote an autobiographical novel called Burn Down the Night, which is about some time he spent with Jim Morrison of the Doors, which was massively remakered in the early 80s. And now it's a really scarce book, and there used to be loads of them around, and I've had it since then. I bought it as a remainder in about 1981. And there's an introduction by Le Guin, so I'm really pleased with that. It's a really nice demi hardcover, 75, and it's quite remarkable. You know, it's a common thing that in these anthologies people write about the state of the genre and what have you, and it's really quite amazing. And if I just go to Peter Nichols' essay, which is about, he says that science fiction's entered a sort of phase of decadence and the walls are falling down, but it's actually a good thing because it's getting harder and harder to distinguish between the mainstream and genre. And you know, it's an interesting thing to see that being said back then. And he mentions, he says, you know, is it a vintage year? Was 75 a vintage year? And you know, just looking through, he goes through some of the books which are coming at 75, and obviously the Forever War, which I've mentioned. And he says Ian Watson's The Embedding, Chris Boyce's Catchwood, John Crowley's The Deep. That's Crowley's first book, I think. Maybe the second one, maybe Engine Summer was the first. Joanna Russ's The Female Man, which is a landmark work of feminist SF. Robert Silverberg's Stochastic Man. Niven and Parnell's Mote in God's Eye, which is a big bestseller. Delaney's Dahlgren, which is just, you know. Arthur C. Clarke's Imperial Earth. J.G. Ballard's High Rise. Keith Roberts' The Chalk Giants. Michael Moorcock's The Hollow Lands. John Brenner's Shockwave Rider. Michael Coney's Hello Summer Goodbye. Jack Vance's Showboat World. Alfred Bestro's Extro, you know, and he says maybe it is a vintage year. Well, you know, it really was. So that's that. So that's my latest sort of little haul. And oh yeah, I picked up a copy of City, which people keep telling me I should read Cermak, and I've read a bit, and he's never quite blown me away. They say this is the one. I've long known it's the one, so I guess I'm going to get around to reading it at last. And that's another little entry. However, they do this rather handsome Smorg journal, which I thought was really, really nice. I really like that. And of course, it's on the cover, I think, the second edition, and it's on an edition my partner's got. And I really like that picture. It's great, isn't it? And you know, it's got nice little designs on the end papers there. You can see there's a little thing about the book there, and it's got one of those things you put your pen in. You know, it's like Stationery. It's that phase you go through. Freud identified various stages, you know, the oral phase, what have you, the latency period, and then of course there's the period where you're interested in Stationery, which is the one he missed out on. It doesn't have any pictures inside. Some of the other ones do, but yeah, I thought that was quite nice. So it was one Tolkien success and one Tolkien fail.